My name is Hanson Cummins. I am your MC for this evening's proceedings. I am 100% homegrown, hailing from this beautiful island of Grenada. As my parents originated from the rural agricultural part of the island, it was instilled in me from a very young age that with hard work and sacrifice, no dream is too big to be realized. With this attitude, I began my pursuit of medicine in 1999 at St. George's University, joining the pre-medical program. Later, with the support of my family, I received my medical degree from St. George's University in 2004. Since graduation, I have been involved in both the academic and clinical aspects of medicine. However, my love has always been clinical practice. While enrolled in my postgraduate training in internal medicine in Barbados, I attended the PAHO WHO conference in 2012. I stood as a representative clinician where we were introduced to a potential threat to the Caribbean, now well known as chikungunya. In the capacity of representative clinician, I delivered numerous lectures on both chikungunya and dengue to healthcare personnel and also to the general public. During my training, I also met my beautiful, supportive wife. I am currently a registrar in internal medicine at the Grenada General Hospital and hope to utilize my training to positively impact patient care. I would like to just close my brief introduction with some words of advice for the matriculating class, having been in your shoes not too long ago. 1. Hit the floor running. There is a large volume of material to synthesize in a short space of time. Do not let work accumulate. Manage your time properly. Make time to relax and to get adequate rest. Challenge yourself to be better by always pursuing knowledge, as medicine is a dynamic field where things are constantly changing. Seek clinical experience, as it helps to cement what you will read and what you have read. With perseverance and hard work, you will accomplish your goal of joining the medical fraternity. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Charles R. Modica, Chancellor and Chairman of the Board of Trustees of St. George's University. Dr. Charles.
Thank you. It's indeed an honor to be here tonight to welcome all of you new students into the School of Medicine. And we have a very distinguished speaker, but I always get to have a few brief remarks. I don't get to do a lot of these ceremonies. In fact, the last one I did was, well, a couple of hours ago, but before that it was quite some time. I'm the founding Chancellor of St. George's University, which is one of the reasons I have my job, actually, I think. And I was a medical student myself long before you were born, and I went to Spain for 1 year, decided medicine was not for me, went home to my Italian mom and dad and let my mom know I wasn't going back even though I passed everything. And she cried for about, at least 2 weeks, probably a little more. But she took it well and finally got the idea that I wasn't going to be a physician. Having gone through 1 year of medical school, I understand what you're about to go through, and I admire you for taking the courage to go ahead and take that big step. I, on the other hand, went to law school and wrote a book on how to get into foreign medical schools, having met a number of Americans at the time, all over Europe, but especially at my own school in Spain. And in the writing of that particular book, I spent a lot of time thinking about, wouldn't it be nice if you had some more English-speaking schools that would take students in? At that time, over 20,000 grads of college were not getting into med school in the States. And I had the book out for a number of years to help pay my way through law school. And every time I went to a college to have a little conference or seminar on foreign medical schools, someone would always raise their hand and say, "What about English speaking?" I said, no, that doesn't work. The UK is not going to accept you, and you got to learn medicine in a foreign language, mostly in Europe at the time. Being somewhat innovative, imaginative, I guess, and mostly crazy. I'm I'm serious. I decided to do a feasibility study for a new international medical school that would teach in English. And this is all in between law school classes, you know, but whatever, you know, it worked. And I wrote to every English-speaking country in the world, asking them if they would like to be included in the feasibility study for a new international medical school in the English language. I got a few letters back, not many, and I had a shoebox, literally, on my desk at law school where I started putting these important documents coming back, and the shoebox was quite empty most days. And I happened to be reading the newspaper where I went to med school one evening. Didn't read it every night. I always wondered if I didn't get that edition, maybe, you know, well, whatever. It's kind of like that Back to the Future moment that everything disappears. And on the bottom of that paper, and the front page was, in the world today, the tiny English-speaking nation of Grenada received independence. This is February of 1974. And I was looking for only independent countries because that would give us degree-granting authority to allow our class to take the boards. Well, I went all out. That shoebox was empty far too long, and something you probably wouldn't understand in the world of emails in your generation, but there was a thing called Western Union and telegrams in those days. It's a little after stagecoaches. I'm not that old. Come on now. And I sent Grenada a congratulatory telegram. And only a crazy guy in law school at 26 years old would do this. Looking back at it now, at the time I thought it was sheer genius. And I basically started off the telegram with the Foreign Medical School Information Center, which published my book, wishes to congratulate Grenada on its newly achieved independence from Great Britain. And as a newly independent nation, your country is eligible for inclusion in the ongoing feasibility study for a new international medical school. There was plenty of room in that shoebox. About a week later, that telegram paid off. Sir Matthew Gary, the Prime Minister at the time, for whatever sense of humor or whatever else he had Gloria Payne answer that telegram, suggesting that Grenada would indeed like to participate in the study. That was a magic moment when I went back from class that day, looked under my door and saw that yellow envelope, I can tell you that. They were at once the front runner in that study, I can tell you that, by leaps and bounds. There were no second places. Well, about 2.5 years later, I managed to convince my dad and many business associates and friends to fork up a little bit of money, a lot of hope, and fund this thing. And we had the first class of medical students come into being in January of '77. So this marks the 29th anniversary of us getting that charter. From the point of the charter to the first class was 5.5 months. Today, if we get a new master's program, it takes about 2 years, by the way, but when you're a one-man operation, things speed up very quickly for some reason, I got to tell you. And I was already out of law school, so the clock was burning. And that's our very humble beginning. And I tell you that story because A, it's truthful, B, it's absurd looking back as an adult. Now I am kind of an elderly guy, I guess, in a way. But at the time, I never had a doubt that it wouldn't work. I never had a doubt that an English-speaking school would allow students to excel and study medicine instead of language. And I can tell you that that Prime Minister, Sir Matthew Gary, introduced me to the charter class. We didn't have white coat ceremonies in those days. And it was at Government House. I was 29 at the time now. I grew up a little bit. And the charter class average age was 29. So I stood there in front of them, having just been introduced by the Prime Minister. And it's amazing, all the training you have in law school and moot court and other things where you can speak in public and never be nervous, never was. That day was a different day. I had 216 new students. The Prime Minister introduced me as the Chancellor of this new university, and I looked at 216 faces of absolute horror. and realize that, if this is going to work, we're going to do it as a team, with mutual respect, not based on age. And it worked. The first class actually was so prominent in the founding of this school that they blew the boards out of the water that year, and that's what the AMA was counting on doing us in. The average pass rate in those days on the Part 1 of the national boards was 33% for non-U.S. students. I had told our students I thought they'd double it, mainly because of learning in English. We had a great faculty of 6 that started with us. One of them is still with us today. Dr. Rao, your Dean of Students, was a charter faculty member, by the way, and 2 years younger than me, so he was junior. And that year, when the 33% pass rate was the average for the foreign schools, and I had hoped to hit 66, we hit 80. And by some fluke, I think it was the John Hopkins, and he deserved it. And in fact, 1/3 of the charter class transferred to U.S. schools. It put us on the map, though. They worked hard. Trust me, if you have your lights go out or something, they rarely had the lights on. So you have a lot here. Sometimes I wish the lights weren't on, by the way, because they didn't have any air conditioning. There was no building air conditioning. We had good sea breeze, hopefully, and a lot of mosquitoes. But the electric bill wasn't $32,000 a day. And that's not EC, by the way. So we have humble beginnings, a lot of hard work. The school is here because of that class and the classes that followed it. And they believed in themselves. They had courage. They had dedication. And they had to be a little crazy to stay. At the time, I thought they were crazy to leave. Looking back as an adult, I don't know what they were all thinking, but we believed in each other, and that's why this school is here today. And today is very special for me because in addition to having a distinguished white coat speaker, and you can see the list of other speakers we've had. I just pointed out to the Prime Minister, by the way, that he wasn't aware of it, that one of our earlier white coat speakers is none other than Dr. Ben Carson, who's now running for the President of the United States. So we've had a lot of distinguished white coat speakers, and I've got to tell you that I'm proud to be here with you. I'm even more proud to be here on a night when today is the first day of a major change in the university and in addition to the university. After 39 years as the Chancellor and CEO and Chair of the Board, we have now decided to appoint a President of the university and a CEO that I will admire, work with, be at his side if he ever needs me, but he will help run this university, and I'll be put halfway out to pasture, not all the way, and I'll still be involved with political stuff in the States and root for you, but I'll know you're in the best hands going forward. This is a great opportunity for all of you, and one of the reasons he's here, I think, is because he knows what you're all about, who you are, and how great you can become. He's presently, for the next few days, according to my watch, still the dean of a U.S. school, the University of California's Riverside School of Medicine. It was the first school established in California in about 3 or 4 decades, and he was the founding dean, just like I'm a founding chancellor, although he earned his job. I didn't. He was at Harvard and Brown before he went there, but it's a little bit different type of a founder there. But it's a public university. He's done very well with it. It had a very great mission, and I'm just so proud that he will want to continue the mission here in Grenada with a more international enrollment. That's what we want to develop, with more opportunities for us students. And I couldn't be more thrilled that he's been here for a few days. We've worked with him for months now, and he accepted this appointment. And as you probably know, if you got your emails and you check them regularly, he has been appointed the president of this school. I would like Dr. Olds to come up and say a few words to you, and before I introduce the Prime Minister. Dr. Olds?
Well, thank you, Chancellor. I will keep it brief since I've only been on the job for a day. I would also like to introduce my partner and my wife of 36 years, my lovely wife, Jackie, who's here with me today. it was only 3 weeks ago, and I had my own white coat ceremony at the medical school in California. And I will tell you the same thing I did there, welcoming a newly minted medical students. When you don your white coat, it is not only the symbol of our profession, but it is also an important reminder of the very special character that our society places on doctors in training. And it is a great privilege to put on a white coat and to begin your career in caring for patients, which you will do for your entire career. I wish you the best of luck, and I couldn't be happier to be here as your new president. Thank you.
And so, my next introduction is to a man who leads this country, who cares about this university and you, each and every one of you, who's been the leader of a country that we have gotten along with every government of many years. But there has been no better relationship, and there have been no, as I always say to Dr. Mitchell, we have never had a more significant relationship in terms of the building of this university than under his governments. And I've got to tell you that most of the buildings that are here, most of the more modern buildings that are here, were under his administration, because he made sure that the university had a very warm environment to operate in. The students were happy here, thrived here, and that we felt welcomed here. And his government and all the people associated, Mr. Steele, Minister of Health, and all of the other people here mean a lot to you individually and to the university, and his leadership is second to none. Dr. Mitchell, if you could say a few words, I'd appreciate it.
To the Honorable Minister of Health, I think was just recognized by the Chancellor. Chancellor, President and CEO, distinguished guest speaker, Professor Montgomery. And let me say, I think I would not be here to hear him again, but I'm telling you, you have something special coming when he speaks to you. Because I want to say this, I thought it was one very illuminating address. You shouldn't be enter politics. Staff, students, white coats, personnel, parents and guardians, welcome. Welcome to the spice country of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I said, welcome. Spice does something special for you, you know. It increases your energy in every respect. But friends, let me say this. I am particularly appreciative of the fact that you've chosen Grenada and St. George's University for this important part of your career. And I want to say to you that over the years, I'm visiting North America, Europe, and wherever I go, I meet what I have to define as ambassadors of this country. Whether they are former students, parents of students, children of students, or family members, all come up to me and identify with the fact that they had some serious connection with St. George's University. In other words, they are genuinely ambassadors for our country. And since our country depends heavily on tourism services, it means that you will be playing an important role in the further development of our country, the promotion of a tourism product. So today I want to tell you that you are now officially all ambassadors for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I also want to say to you, I remember I became Prime Minister of this country the first time in 1995. Right? It's a long time ago. But it wasn't continuous because they gave me a sabbatical in 2008. And you know what sabbatical is, right? But they quickly realized that they need me to get back into the classroom in 2013. And I remember in 1996, when those of you who probably know, we have annual heads of government meeting of the CARICOM community, all the countries in the region, the prime ministers meet. And we discuss issues related to the entire Caribbean. And I mentioned St. George's University, and I got a tongue lashing from my colleagues. How dare I mention this foreign university? I stood my ground. And I want to tell you just recently, July the 5th, in Barbados, and the heads of government meeting, St. George's University was touted as one of the success stories of universities in the entire Caribbean. St. George's University, give yourself a hearty round of applause. So, since you are ambassadors, we have to treat you as ambassadors. And let me say to you, we have heard of some unfortunate situation at our airport recently when some of you came in. I want to say to you, this is the complete opposite of what this government stands for. We treasure your presence. We treasure the fact that you chose St. Joseph's University and Grenada to be for that important part of your life. And therefore, we will in fact investigate what happened, because it will never happen again, not under my watch. So, ambassadors, do your work. Promote the spice country of Grenada, CARICOM, Petit Martinique. I thank you again for your presence here. All the best.
Thank you, Chancellor Modica, for those remarks, and also Prime Minister who left and President Bowles. The Arnold P. Gold Foundation created the White Coat Ceremony in 1993 to promote humanism in medicine. St. George's University's School of Medicine initiated its own White Coat Ceremony in 1996, long before many other U.S. medical schools. In 2003, the Gold Foundation founded the Gold Humanism Honor Society, which is an international society dedicated to the promotion of humanism, professionalism, and ethics in the medical practice and education. SGU annually inducts new members into its chapter of Gold Humanism Honor Society. SGU's chapter of Gold Humanism Honor Society envisioned and established the humanitarian student organization in 2009, through which medical preclinical students can engage in services activities for their communities with the support from the Gold Foundation. 2014 member names are listed at the back of your program. These inductees are presently doing their fourth-year rotations, and we honor their embodiment of Gold Humanism Honor Society ideals and their efforts to provide humane, caring, and professional patient care. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hugh Montgomery, our keynote speaker. Dr. Hugh Montgomery is a man of many talents: academia, clinical practice, and leisure. In 1984, he obtained a first-class BSc in cardiorespiratory physiology and neuropharmacology. He graduated from Middlesex Hospital Medical School and obtained his higher research degree from University of London in 1987. He is currently a professor of intensive care medicine at University College London and practices as a consultant in critical care, cardiology, and internal medicine. Dr. Montgomery leads a research group in cardiovascular genetics, which has published over 100 articles in journals like Nature, The Lancet, and also the New England Journal of Medicine. He has pioneered research into the ACE fitness gene, which determines our capacity for either strength or endurance. Outside of clinical medicine, Dr. Montgomery has worked on climate change and health, for which he was awarded the title of London Leader by the London Sustainable Development Commission. Furthermore, he's a co-author of the UCL Lancet Commission and is a founding member of the UK Climate and Health Council. Dr. Montgomery is also a children's author, an ultra-marathon runner, and holds the world record for underwater piano playing. He has also climbed Choyu and Mount Everest with the Extreme Everest Research Group. These are just a few of Professor or Dr. Montgomery's achievements, as time will not permit me to list them all. He is truly an extraordinaire in the field of medicine. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hugh Montgomery.
Well, good evening. I'm going to use this little microphone here because I made a mess of the last one. So there you are. I've got a list of all the people I'm meant to thank here because we've got chancellors, Prime Minister himself, ministers, presidents, provosts, vice provosts, deans, professors. And I'm truly grateful to them for the invitation to speak to you today and for the hospitality we've been shown, because my family sitting down at the front there, we arrived in this lovely country 2 weeks ago, and we've enjoyed the hospitality of the nation here, professional and otherwise. We've enjoyed all the fabulous food there is to be eaten, and we provided nutrition for every form of biting insect known to humanity, I think, as well. You can read me in Braille now. So my gratitude to that, but I'm going to ask that the distinguished guests at the front allow me to now totally ignore them, because my role being here today is not to speak with them at all. They're the admirals of the fleet. They fought the battles. They've created greatness. But you, the students here today, are launching your own careers as captains now into clinical medicine. And I had to give some thought as to what I might say today. And it occurred to me that it wasn't my role to tell you where you should be going, because I don't know where you're going to navigate your ship, whether you're going to be in reproductive endocrinology or forensic psychiatry or neurosurgery or any realm of other different things. In fact, probably some destinations we've never heard of because medicine evolves so quickly. What I can hope to do, perhaps, is to give you some suggestions from my 34 years in clinical and research life of the way in which you might steer your ship, the principles you might hold to, and the way in which you might manage your crew and those that you meet along the way. And so that's what I'm going to try to do in the next 20 or so minutes. I've divided this up into sort of 4 sections. I'm going to deal with humanity, firstly. I'm going to deal with knowledge, secondly. Then I'm going to deal with ignorance and skepticism. And finally, I'm going to deal with the issue of motivation. Not how do you get where you want to go, but what makes you want to go there in the first place. So the first part I'm going to start with is humanity, and it begins with my father. My father was raised in a very poor fishing community in the north-east part of Ireland. And his father was a ship's captain in the days of sailing vessels, and they were poor. But they saved every penny they had to put the 2 sons through medical school, as many of your parents will have done to get you here today. And he repaid that debt with a life of service in gratitude for the debt that he'd been given. And he worked as a paediatrician. And for the first 12 years of my life, he did a 1-in-1, which meant he was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no weekends off, no nights off. And he had 2 weeks off a year when they got a locum in. That was my life for 12 years with my father. And that meant that if my mother was busy and my dad got called in, we had to go too, because there were 3 of us, and we quite rightly couldn't be trusted to be left at home on our own. There'd have been all sorts of trouble. And I remember one day, my father had been called in. It was a Saturday. I was probably about 5. And we arrived at the hospital car park and parked. And as we walked across the car park, my father noticed a crisp packet on the other side of the car park. And he diverted across the car park to pick it up, put it in his pocket to throw in a bin later on. Now, I was only about 5, but I'd already worked out that my father was some sort of big shot at the hospital. You know, people seemed to do what he said, seemed to treat him with some level of respect. So I couldn't quite work out why this big shot should go and pick up a crisp packet. So I asked him. I said, "Dad, what do you do that for?" And he stopped and looked me in the eye and he said, "Son, there's nothing too small for a truly big man." Right, that's not a sexist thing, truly big woman as well. That's the first lesson I want to leave you with, because if you're going to achieve greatness in your careers, it will be not because you go for the big ticket items. It will be because of the small things you do for the patients and their relatives. The fact that you treat every single patient you see and every single relative as if they were your relative, your mother, your sister, your brother, your child, your lover. Treat them that way and you'll start correctly. And that doesn't have to be just medically. It can be on all the small things. So if someone needs an urgent scan, don't just shout at the radiologist down the phone, go and talk to them. Try and persuade them why you need that scan. If the porters aren't coming because they're busy, roll your sleeves up and push the bed yourself. If an old lady loses her glasses, go and buy a cheap pair at the drugstore and get her a newspaper while you're at it. Because it's these small things that matter a great deal. Now sometimes those small things can lead you astray. And I suppose what I'm meant to do is encourage you not to take risks. And I'm going to do nothing of the sort. I think you should be renegades in your lives. And my, I suppose, best renegade story of these small things was when I worked on a unit called the Lane Fox unit. The Lane Fox unit is a specialist unit in London, and it manages patients who are paralysed and unable to breathe, and will never breathe again, by and large. And I was working on that unit in the late 80s, looking after a chap called Arthur. And Arthur could only speak because he had a tracheostomy in. And the reason for that was that he was a guitarist and ran a small computer company. But one day he helped his wife prune the roses. And he pricked his finger on a thorn. And from that he developed staphylococcal septicemia. And from that he got an abscess at C2 in his spinal cord. And that wrote his spinal cord off. And he never moved a muscle below his neck and never breathed on his own again. And when I first met Arthur, he'd been in that bed, same bed, for 3 years. Because ventilators in those days were not portable. Now, Arthur could breathe, the machine would blow in, and when it breathed out, he was able to say a few words, and he sounded like every British criminal from a Hollywood film that you've ever heard. He had that great East End sort of dodgy accent like that, right? You know, from East of London. And I was doing a walk around one Saturday morning, and a friend phoned up and said, "Hugh, what are you doing tonight?" I said, nothing on. He said, "Fancy seeing the Rolling Stones at Wembley? I'm going to get some tickets." Now, you're probably too young to know who the Rolling Stones are, but believe me, great band, still worth seeing. And so I said, "Yeah, get me a couple of tickets." And when I reached Arthur's bed, I said, "Arthur, mate, never guess where I'm going this evening. I'm seeing the Stones at Wembley." And his face fell, because I'd forgotten he was a guitarist. And he said, "Oh, it's dreadful, Hugh. I used to love that Rolling Stones. I saw them in Hyde Park in 1976. So I phoned around a few nurses and said, "Any of you up for a trip out this evening? And if we get caught, you're going to lose your job." And fortunately, a couple of them said yes. So we phoned around some ambulance companies, because we couldn't do this on the National Health Service. They'd get in terrible trouble. Found an ambulance company, said, yeah, they'd give us an ambulance and some drivers for the evening. Then I phoned the technicians up and said, "Look, any way you can make a ventilator work when it's disconnected from the electricity?" And they said, "Well, we could probably jury rig it to run off gas for a while." I said, "How long's a while?" "About 4 hours," they said. I said, "Come in and do it, but don't ask why." And that evening, we took Arthur to see the Rolling Stones. We sneaked him out the back door so the boss didn't know. We got to the wheelchair enclosure. If you've ever been to a wheelchair enclosure in a rock concert, it is full of really badly behaved people, because they're all young and they've all got themselves in trouble because they've crashed their cars, they've skied too fast, they've ridden their motorcycle off something they shouldn't have ridden it off. And in this case, not only having a wild time, but they were also smoking an awful lot of very interesting tobacco, which was getting sucked straight up the ventilator input of my patient, who now looked like Puff the Magic Dragon because there was smoke coming out of his neck. And he was singing along to every other line of the Rolling Stones. We were getting, brown sugar, why do you treat me? Next one would come in. By the time we got him back, he couldn't talk, partly because he wasn't sober enough to talk, and secondly because his vocal cords were absolutely knackered. And the boss got me to get an ENT surgeon on the Monday because he couldn't work out what had gone wrong. Arthur died 2 years later in the same bed, having never, ever got out of hospital again. The point I'm making is not that that sort of trip made a diagnosis, nor did it cure him, but it made a very big difference to him because it demonstrated humanity to him. It demonstrated that people could be bothered. And that's the next thing I want to say to you, because if you're curing people, you have to also treat them with kindness and humanity. And if you do one without the other, then you're in the wrong profession. It's also important when there is no cure, because you're going to tell people that they're going to die, and there's nothing you can do to prevent that. If you abandon them at that point, they will be ever more lonely and scared, because being ill is very lonely, and it's very frightening. And it's your job to say, I will walk with you, I will hold your hand, I will support you in this journey. When it goes wrong and the tests get lost and people won't do things, phone me and I will make it right for you. Not we, not my unit, not my hospital, not some administrators, but me personally, I will do this for you. And I've had experience where that hasn't happened. My father, whom we spoke earlier, was dying of a bone marrow cancer, myeloma. And in his dying year, I said to him, how's it going, Dad? And he said, it's not going well. And I said, why is it not going well? And he paused for a moment, he said, because it feels like I'm being treated by committee. Don't ever, ever let your patients feel that way about the way you're treating them. Because it isn't just about the humanity and the kindness, it's about the fact that if patients feel better, they do better. And that's biology. If you are vaccinated now as medical students in your final year, many of you will be anergic. You will not develop an immune response to the hepatitis B vaccine. If you're vaccinated in a non-exam year, most of you will respond very well, because being stressed knackers your immune system. If it does it to you, it will do it to your patients. If you take a punch biopsy from the care of a demented person, or when that demented person has been put into care to give the care a bit of respite, the wound will heal 3.5 days quicker when that relative is without stress, as it will in a dental student in an exam term compared to a non-exam term. Non-exam terms, wounds will heal 3.5 days quicker. And in the 1990s, when HIV was first found, it meant that you were homosexual by and large. It also meant that you were going to die because we had no treatment for it and you were going to get AIDS. If you owned up to having HIV, what that meant was you were telling people mostly that you're homosexual. And some people hadn't told their friends and family that and didn't want them to know. Those patients got AIDS 3 years earlier than the patients who were open about their sexuality. So remember that by being kind, you may also be improving outcome. So that's the kindness and humanity part. The second part relates to knowledge, because my first boss was a guy called Robin Vickery, and he took me aside in the first week of my first job to tell me what he thought my job was. And I remember well that he said to me one day, remember, Hugh, that you can show that you care in other ways than by holding someone's hand. And what he meant by that was by working bloody hard and knowing more than anyone else knew, having a drop-down menu at the top that was full of facts that allowed me to cross-reference, make the diagnosis, know what the treatment was, and do it effectively. That's caring just as much as being empathetic. And if you do that, you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to end up like House or Sherlock Holmes. Well, hopefully not quite as crotchety as House, but just as inspirational, because you'll start being able to make the connections very quickly, and it's enormous fun when you can see things no one else can see. And furthermore, you're going to find something quite spooky, and that is you'll develop a sixth sense. You'll start knowing things, being able to do things, but not know why it happened. And there's a quote attributed to a golfer called Gary Player. It's probably attributed to every other golfer as well. But the story goes that Gary Player had landed in a bunker and he couldn't see the hole. And he'd taken a look and he got his sand and he hit it and the ball popped out straight down the hole. And his caddy said to him, "Mr. Player, that was lucky." And Gary Player looked at him and said, "Yeah, it's a weird thing." He says, "I find the more I practice, the luckier I get." And we've all got experience. My wife's down in the front row there, and when we get calls late at night or in the middle of the night, we listen into each other's calls. We can usually hear what's at the other end. My wife's a paediatrician. She's not an adult intensivist. But she will often look at me and shake her head and go, "Something's not right." She could hear the other end of the call and just know that it isn't what I'm being told it is. And I can do the same with her calls. I don't know why, but we've got a sixth sense for these things now. And I can tell you of an occasion when I was in an emergency room one day, writing up some notes, young woman opposite, clutching her head, 2-week-old baby on her lap. And I said to the casualty officer next to me, "What's going on there?" He said, "Oh, migraine. She has recurrent migraines, very bad migraine. We're just about to send her home with some medication." And I knew what she had. She had something called a colloid cyst of the fourth ventricle, which would be fatal. I have no idea how I knew. It's the only case I've ever seen, and it's very rare. But I knew that's what she had, and I got her scanned, and she did. She had a neurosurgery, and she went home with her baby a week later, and she would otherwise have died. Was that because I'm very smart? No, not at all. Because I'm intellectually more gifted than anyone else? No, not at all. I've just been around a lot. Yeah? If you stick around and work hard, you learn to find things other people can't. My next piece of advice, though, apart from the working hard, is how the hell you sustain it. Because everyone in this audience down here, you've all done a degree already, and you're just about to launch into another degree, another at least 4 years. And then you're going to have exam boards and hires and goodness knows what for your speciality exams. And you can burn out. And how do you avoid the burning out? Well, I had a parallel career, which I think was briefly mentioned. I had a parallel career before I took up medicine as a diver. And we were diving a vessel off the west coast of Italy. It was an Etruscan vessel. It sank in 621 BC. Small team, no money, because there's no money in archaeology at all. I was being paid 50 US cents a day for 3 meals. And we lived in an abandoned building with no windows, no door, no security, no beds, hard concrete floors, no running water, no toilets. The toilet was the hillside, outside. There was a lovely fig tree over our building, which the rats used as their toilet. But I've never been happier. We were diving the most extraordinary wreck, beautiful clear water. We were lifting porcelain that had been underwater for 2,500 years, and we were playing wooden flutes that had been played for 2,500 years. The next year, a new team member arrived. He was absolutely horrified. No water, no security, no doors, no beds, rats peeing all over the food, toilets on a hillside, dangerous work, everyone starving on 50 cents a day. Appalling. Within a week, everyone on that team felt this was the worst experience they'd ever had in their lives. You may have already experienced this, but my advice, therefore, if you're going to maintain your passion in medicine, is to avoid the pessimists. They will plague you. They will infect you. They will drag you down. You've got to surround yourself by enthusiasts, people who still love going to work. And my wife and I are both fortunate enough that on most days, we wake up and think, great, another day at work, how fantastic. So that's humanity and knowledge. But what about skepticism? Having just told you a bunch of stuff, I want to remind you to ignore anything and everything anyone tells you. All right? Measure everything I've said to you and I'm about to say to you and anything anyone else ever says to you with a skeptical eye and reach your own conclusions. Because post-mortem data show that doctors are wrong 10 to 12% of the time in emergency situations. If you accept the diagnosis that's given you by the last doctor, 1 in 10 times you're going to be doing something wrong. You'll be treating the wrong disease. This is you are the one chance that patient has for that error to be corrected. For someone to go, yeah, okay, it might be, but what if it isn't? So you've got to do that with every single patient. And if you don't, you're failing them. And the times when I haven't done it, I have lived to regret that day. And my patients have not lived to regret that day. My mother is one case in point. She became poorly. She told me not to meddle. They're very good down here, she said. They're very nice. And they were very nice. They just weren't very good, as it turned out. My mother told me not to interfere. I accepted that, and actually I shouldn't have done. I felt embarrassed to interfere. It made me feel more relaxed that I didn't have to. So I didn't. And 3 years later, we dragged her up to London, where the test showed that she was dying of metastatic cancer that could have been easily treated 3 years earlier if only I'd done what I would do for my other patients. The same applies to everything you're going to be taught as well about science. So when I was taught at medical school about low oxygen delivery, for instance, up high mountains, about which we were speaking earlier, I was told that the answer the human body had was to deliver more. Breathe harder, heart pumps harder, blood gets thicker, wings more oxygen around the body. That's how you compensate. And I was climbing a hill in the Himalayas in '98 called Pumori, which is a little short of 7,000 meters. That's 21,000 feet high. There was an emergency. Someone rattled the tent in the morning and said, "Are you the doc?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I'm the doc." And he said, "Well, my friend's dying. Can you help?" This was an Australian. And this woman was right. Her friend was dying, or trying to die. So I did what we needed to do and ended up having to make a very rapid descent down the hill. And with a storm coming, I had to make my own way back later that day. And I ascended that route in 35 minutes when it had taken me a little over 5.5 hours the day before. And it was at that point I realized everything I'd been taught about oxygen delivery was wrong. Because I couldn't be breathing any harder, my heart couldn't pump any harder, my blood couldn't have got thicker in a day. It had to be something about the use of oxygen. That's where this expedition to Choi Oyu in 2006 came from, and Everest in 2007, where we showed that's right. Your body adapts by switching off oxygen use, improving its efficiency of use, not by trying to deliver more. We then took that to intensive care patients, showed the same thing, and have changed our management radically. Only now do we realize how many patients we've killed, how many people I killed in the 34 years of medical practice by trying to drive more oxygen delivery to people with low oxygen delivery. I've killed, the body count is substantial. And I only wish that I and others had had the nerve to question what our masters and mistresses had told us before. And I'd strongly advise that you do just the same. Final 2 points then. On the issue of skepticism, I'd just like to remind you that we don't know everything. There's some things we know nothing about at all. And one of those is this mysterious thing called the will to live. And the story I'll tell you briefly is of a woman called Liz Murphy. That's her real name. She died in 1986 when I was doing my first job, and she was 88, and she had a heart attack when she was out ballroom dancing. So you can already get the measure. This was a pretty feisty woman. And we got on terribly well, but she became sicker and sicker, and ultimately something catastrophic happened and she lost consciousness. I thought she'd die there and then, but she didn't, and the next morning she was still there. The next morning I turned up and said to the nurses, "Is Liz gone?" And they said, "Nope, she's still there." I said, "For goodness sake, that's 3 days now." The next day, has Liz died? No, Liz is still there. And after nearly a week, I realised that this might be something more to Liz's hanging in there than I'd expected. So I went to sit with Liz and I said, "Look, Liz, I don't know why you're still here. You should be dead by now. But if you're doing it for me, you don't have to. You're not letting me down by dying. You are allowed to die. You aren't letting me down. But it has been a pleasure knowing you. But do go if you want to go." And she died there and then. And I've seen this many times before. An elderly woman in 98, church organist, who declined all treatment at one point. And I went up and said, "Okay, I'll write that in your notes so no one bothers you again." And she said, "Are you not going to kiss me goodbye?" And I said, "I'm just going to go and write your notes." But I gave her a kiss, went and wrote the notes, and she was dead when I got back. Because people can decide on what's going to happen, and I don't know how that works. Right, last bit, we're on the home straight. And to liven up, we're going to have a quiz. There'll be a short test on everything I've told you so far, and if you don't get it right, you're all kicked out. So the question is really about what's motivating you to do what you're going to do. So we're going to have a show of hands, I'm going to give you 4 options, and you can vote for all of them, all right? Because most people's decisions in life aren't driven by just one thing. They're driven by a whole bunch of stuff. So by all means, put your hands up for any combination of these things about why you want to do medicine. So, for those of you doing medicine, who has got even the smallest component that it was partly to please their parents or family, that the family sort of expect them to do it? Okay? Partly was for me. My dad was a doctor, my mum was a nurse. I sort of, partly, I think a small element was that. Okay. Who wants to do it because it's a high status job? You could have gone to Harvard Law, you could have been a CEO of a top company, but no, you want a hard-hitting, top-end job. Who wants a high-status job as part of the driver? Okay, that's some of you. Nothing wrong with that. Who's doing it because they want to get loaded, get rich? Not loaded full of drugs, loaded full of... There are those opportunities, I think, as well in medicine. But who's doing it for money? Who wants to earn a good salary? Okay. And the killer question they ask you at every medical school interview in London is, who's doing it because they want to help people? Okay. That's most of you. And what I'm just going to leave you with the thought of is, I want you to give thought during your careers to how you want to help people, because there are 3 ways in which you can do this. The first is by looking after individuals and their relatives, right? Diagnosing them quicker, treating them better, curing them faster, comforting them when they're dying, relieving their distress, supporting their families. That's perfectly reasonable. And you can do that at scale. You could be Mother Teresa of Calcutta. You can go and look after people one by one and make their lives better. And the ripples that you make from those splashes in the pond will spread. That's fine. But just if you're going to do that, decide that that's how you want to help people. Because your other choice might be to work with the Minister for Health at the front here and do population health or epidemiology, which is the landscape of your country, to treat people better en masse. So you might want to go for that. But I'd also remind you that most suffering in the world is not from rare and complex diseases readily treated by Western medicine. Most suffering in the world comes from poverty, it comes from inequity, and it comes from conflict. So if you really, really want to help people with the big ticket items way of doing it, you might want to think about your role in politics or in economics, in national or state politics, in international politics, in world banking, because these are things that make an enormous difference, and your voice is important. And I have one very good friend, Timmy, who is making a great difference in the World Bank by bringing a human voice from a doctor to the banking sector. So that's where I'm going to finish. A quick reminder then, work hard, of course. Enjoy working hard, surround yourself by positive people, and run a long, far mile from people who are negative. Question everything you're taught, believe no one, question every diagnosis, and treat every patient as if they were a family member with compassion, humanity, and kindness, because it will make a difference. Aspire to greatness. Remember that we don't know half what we think we know. And I'll leave you with one quote from, if you're a Brit, a very important person from the Second War called T. Lawrence of Arabia. And his book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, is worth a read. And I'll give you the first and last sentence from the introduction he wrote to that book. And the first and last sentences are, and excuse me again, this is not sexist, men, you can read men or women, but he wrote, "All men dream, but not equally. Beware those who dream with their eyes open, for these are dangerous men." So I encourage you to dream with your eyes open, and I wish you all the best in your studies and in the pursuit of those dreams. Thank you very much indeed for listening.
To welcome each of you to the medical profession, St. George University School of Medicine will now present you with a white coat, symbolizing your entry to the profession and your commitment to uphold the duties and trusts associated with medicine and medical training. To assist our keynote speaker and myself with Robin, I now invite several faculty to the stage. Dr. Vijaya Chilapella, Dr. Safina Hafiz, Dr. Deepak Sharma, Dr. Kesara Rayban, T.M. Reddy, Dr. Ewal Marshall, Dr. John Okpe, Dr. Shamila Ubdaya, Dr. Frederick Kotze, and Dr. Jack D'Angelo. In recognition of our international enrollment, the Grand Marshal, Dr. Barbara Landon, Professor of Bioethics, will call each student by name and state their country of birth. Please hold your applause until all students have been robed. For safety, we ask the audience to kindly remain seated and not to interrupt the ceremony by taking pictures in the forward section of the hall. Thank you for your cooperation.
Heather Stewart, California. Jesse Mendez, North Carolina. Lindsay Southgate, California. Sandivya Nair, New Jersey. Shivalika Mihan, New Jersey. Emily Wang, New York. Ting Ting Wang, Florida. Katie Marrero, Pennsylvania. Tiffany Luciano, California. Naveen Makalintal, Virginia. Cecilia Wynn, California. And Sawyer Ricker, Texas. Parth Patel, Georgia. Jadeep Mann, Virginia. Edmund Marif, Virginia. Alexander Pam, California. Nako Yorachika, Japan. Bao Khan, Gin, Texas. Christine Pam, Virginia. Jessica McLaughlin, Montana. Lauren Sussman, New York. Sarah Sanchez, New Jersey. Mona Raphael, California. Peter Shearer, Minnesota. Bilal Noradine, Michigan. Simon Sept, California. Diana Villanueva, California. Lauren White, Nebraska. Tram Thai, California. Monil Patel, California. J.C. Pudney, New York. Stephanie Sarmiento, New Jersey. Paul Weisberg, New York. Belinda Nwagabara, California. Ali Zaydel, Massachusetts. Henry McGee, Ohio. Dina Wissa, New York. Palak Patel, New York. Michael Manius, Illinois. Ariana Taberi, Quebec, Canada. Marnie Ventier, Ontario, Canada. Joselle O'Brien, Trinidad and Tobago. Laurel Neville, California. Alyssa Mavi, Kentucky. Catherine Spalina, New York. Claudia Vega Castellevi, Puerto Rico. Priya Patel, Alabama. And Krishna Thakur, India. Arjun Raval, Michigan. Salah Maker, California. Samantha Singh, Trinidad and Tobago. Cindy McCartney, Trinidad. Tara Murray, New York. Rachel Mevison, Minnesota. Gauri Sivagnalamam, New York. Ellsworth J. Wright IV, New Jersey. Alex Pozes, Washington. Faraz Mamagani, New York. Marco Velikovic, Virginia. And Brighton Perman, South Dakota. Crystal Rathor, Louisiana. Kristen Susan Roy, New York. William Gerard Rainey, Missouri. Elizabeth Rosen, New York. Afrin Nuzad, New York. Justin Pantapatu, New York. Ryan Prestiano, New York. Donna Omer, New York. Matthew Protas, New Jersey. Suzanne Pichoni, Massachusetts. Gift Adanma Oyenso, Illinois. And Nancy Musauke, Nairobi, Kenya. Broti Rahman, Texas. Nicholas Panting, Indiana. Micah Wari, Florida. Gunja Patel, New Jersey. Sagar Mehta, California. Puang Vu, California. Magdalena Zuzek, Poland. Nicholas Romagnoli, Virginia. Priya Patel, Illinois. Mohammed Niemer, Texas. Tara Shepard, Washington, D.C. Spundanu Tenkabo, Arizona. Iti Patel, Florida. Durva Masi, New York. Christy Patel, Texas. Crystal Shah, New York. Jaswinder Rathur, New York. Margaret Ann McDowell, Trinidad and Tobago. Parita Patel, Illinois. Tuwanjo Sam Udosina, Nigeria. E.T. Shukar, Toronto, Canada. James David McGee, Florida. Yashna Ranmuth, Ontario, Canada. And Ashley Seeby, New Jersey. Nathan Pedikoff, California. Harriet Adelaide Smith, Colorado. Nikolai Vakarev, New York. Heidi Stout, Canada. Hillary McKinley, Connecticut. Sandra Zalonis, Pennsylvania. Nina Ann Matthew, Illinois. Stephen Patton, Texas. Alessandra Petrillo, New Jersey. Ruby Vassar, California. Carrie Ann Vlaming, Ontario, Canada. And Chan Ho-shin, Arizona. Anne Therese Peer, Arizona. Alyssa Marie Salanga, Arizona. Karel Ortiz Tavares, Dominican Republic. Wagas Shafiq, New York. Wasik Rashid, New Jersey. Gursagar Singh, New York. Lisa Patel, New Jersey. Andrew Silverman, Florida. Paul Sinowicki, Nebraska. Jasmine Malhotra, Maryland. Julie Pfeffer, Maryland. Robert McMahon, New York. Thin Zaw, California. Melissa Magenta, New York. Mona Madadi, Ontario, Canada. Anna K. Raglan, Georgia. Aline Zarabidaki, Georgia. Sarah Shahad, Colorado. Asia Patterson, New York. Brittany Taylor, Maryland. Abhinav Marcus, Arizona. Cyrus Hoshidar, Tamboli, Florida. Bakht Sidaki, Newfoundland, Canada. David Pena, California. Colin O'Connor, Arizona. Nami Muradi, California. Marilyn Shumba, Pennsylvania, born in Zimbabwe. Janaki Tokala, Nevada. Natalie Mursalion, New York. Andrew Van Sok, Colorado. Andrew Valdez, Florida. Kevin Snyder, Florida. Jesse Morris, New Mexico. Kulin Panchal, Illinois. Jonathan Phillips, Toronto, Canada. Anton Popa, Minnesota. Timothy Wong, California. Barty Moore, Ontario, Canada. Shruti Reddy, Alberta, Canada. Thomas Pustarino, New York. Ashmin Zariat, Florida. Anika Usmani, Bangladesh. Tyler Shapiro, New York. Taser Seen, New York. Izzadeen Zatari, Maryland. Nicholas Prendis, Maryland. Nadia Nagy, New York. And Hala Kamran Siddiqui, Texas. Rita Sandhu, Texas. Saad Saif, Washington. Amber Malik, New York. Ramshah Sultana, Virginia. Amber Sheikh, New York. Muqaddas Malik, New York. Megan Merklin, Illinois. Tylee Rickett, Arizona. Vikram Nair, Singapore. Sue Tran, Georgia. Urvi Patel, North Carolina. Yesha Patel, North Carolina. Utit Patel, Pennsylvania. Sriram Nalluri, Alabama. Onkar Mutar, California. Amit Mehta, Connecticut. Harsh Shah, Florida. Burpartap Singh, California. Pavan Vemula, Illinois. Jin Yong Wang, China. Eri Stephen Oy, Florida. Roshni Naran, Louisiana. Daniel Sweeney, Tennessee. And Sean Roche, Connecticut. Jennifer Yoon, California. Alyssa Owen, Texas. Holly Willis, Florida. Amal Patel, California. Susang Pan, Taiching, Taiwan. Jenna Pearl, New York. Danielle Wolf, New York. Alex Mold, Massachusetts. Anthony Russo, New Jersey. Bishoy Nassef, California. Gary Orzuchewicz, Florida. And Francisco Zerpa, Florida. Asim Syed, Florida. Mallory Vest, Illinois. Alexander Ma, New York. Bharvya Narala, New York. Sonika Patel, New York. Puya Metanat, Nebraska, born in Iran. Christina Nemeth, Florida. Tony Nguyen, California. Gislan Chomboy, Cameroon. Iman Pinkman, Pennsylvania. Andrea Sarah Owusu Sheherty, Baltimore. And Lucina Mirzakani, California. Ryan Shelby, Arizona. Junik Quintana, Florida. Jennifer Trela, New Jersey. Morgan Sanders, Florida. Nicholas Preziosi, Florida. Alex Schall, Florida. Alex Zimmer, Missouri. Jeremy Stubbs, California. Joel Maruthano, New Jersey. Sean Scarpilio, Pennsylvania. Nicolette Stelter, Florida. And Kyle Vanderplat, New York. Robert Petrak, Illinois. Nikos Papa, Pennsylvania. Daniel Sherman, Iowa. Sankirth Takalapati, Virginia. Demetrios Talonis, New York. Thomas Sniffen, New York. Ronald Ogbu, Oklahoma City. Samuel Ng, California. Tuan Nguyen, Ontario, Canada. Win Dang, California. Naomi Warnick, Georgia. Mark Taylor Vaughn, Virginia. Anthony Nanajian, Lebanon. Arta Srikodai, Hawaii. Maximo Sterling, Orlando, Florida. Anthony Passarella, New York. Daniel Wexler, New York. Jack Thatcher, Alabama. Sean Ho Yoon, New York. Pujita Santi, Texas. Julio Medina, Florida. Gracie Pio, Canada. Shelby Wakefield, Colorado. Carolyn Muir, Pennsylvania. Kathleen Salmond, California. Ibab Orgur, Georgia. Kimberly Okayezi, Nigeria. Morgan Ian Grace, Nigeria. Kevin Orita, California. Vanessa Pierre Luis, New York. Ashwin Mehra, Arizona. Michael Wilson, Florida. Luke Montgomery, Missouri. Neil Patel, New York. Marat Middleman, New York and Ukraine. Patricia Orababor, California. Shelley Prasad, New York. Titalopi Obayama, New York. Rebecca Olawu, Illinois. Ambimbola Popola, New Jersey and Nigeria. Rashida Youssef, New York. Nikhil Shah, New Jersey. Parth Shah, California. Ankit Sani, Illinois. Benjamin Senior, Florida. Allison Malador, Connecticut. Farah Mosley, California. And Akash Ad, Illinois. AJ Mogdadam, Minnesota. Natalie McKeown, New Jersey. Han Tien Gen, California. Nivu, Georgia. Callie Morano, Mississippi. Ryan Rode, Texas. Jasmine Sayegh, Rhode Island. Zachary Rahim, Ohio. Keisha LaFleur, New York. Bahrak Maknoon, California. Alicia Masucci, Connecticut. Yamini Indravadan Patel, Kenya. Ishani Patel, Toronto, Canada. Krishna Parikh, New Jersey. Bindursi Parachuri, Illinois. Jared Stevens, Indiana. Vance Ragbir, Trinidad and Tobago. Jessel Ramdas, Trinidad and Tobago. Leanna Ramlogan, Trinidad and Tobago. Neda Orr, Trinidad and Tobago. Francesca Nadia Tabano, Florida. Daniel Vaz, Wisconsin and Singapore. Anton Vokrosensky, New York. And Jean Maglor Verlis III, New York. Soeb Usta, Massachusetts. Chinani Mogabello, Botswana. Mina Misak, Ontario, Canada. Elijah Moses Parks, Trinidad and Tobago. Jonathan Tafes, Texas. Aaron Jonas, California. John Matsuo, Washington. Dino Malone, Los Angeles. Arvind Prabhaharan, Toronto, Canada. Daniel Tadros, California. Heather Mayos, California. And Frank Wolek, New York. Jared Quast, California. Cody Tida, Ohio. Kevin Shapiro, Colorado. Rolf Ratunya, New Jersey. Pernell Reed, Massachusetts. Katrina Sienna, Connecticut. Kate Morey, Massachusetts. Emily Yao, New York. Hani Nasser, New Jersey. Zachary Nasser, Pennsylvania. Aranice Son, Cambodia. Noshin Sonia Saeed, Maryland. Hari Shah, New Jersey. Ishwar Swami, Ohio. Danielle Seltzer, New Jersey. Ashke Pawar, Illinois. Vrutant Patel, New York. Sorry. Janil Modi, Texas. Sabi Raman, Pennsylvania. Omar Shaikh, New Jersey. Shivani Patel, India. Shani Pascal, Trinidad and Tobago. Abrayami Shankar, India. Richard Shalmayev, New York. Shaul Shalof, New York. Siddharth Saxena, India. Anshu Vaidya, Nepal. Nirja Shah, Texas. Irene Papa, Illinois. Melanie Vega, Florida. Lauren McShane, California. Pooja Sampat, Georgia. Aisha Siddiqa, New York.
All right, I'd like to thank all the robots for a job well done. I must say this brings back memories for me because not too long ago I was in your guys' situation. And I must say I still do have my own original lab coat. The emblem fell off, but I still have it. All right. At this time, I'd like to invite the students and all doctors present to stand and recite aloud with me the professional commitment listed near the back of your program. Today is the beginning of my medical education and training as a physician. I acknowledge my responsibility to continue the pursuit of knowledge and understanding until the day when I will cease to be a practicing physician. I am entering training for a noble profession in which I always be subservient to those who may seek my assistance. I must be ever conscious of the value of my fellow health professionals and treat them with respect at all times. My classmates at St. George's University are now my colleagues, and I owe to them the same support and encouragement to achieve their goals as I hope to receive from them. I will work alongside my colleagues and professors with tolerance, compassion, and honesty. I acknowledge my obligation to adhere to the University Honor Code and to conduct myself with integrity and in an ethical manner at all times henceforth. I shall do all within my power to show myself an example of all that is honorable and good throughout my medical career. It is a privilege to have been given Trinity to become a physician. May I be ever conscious, privileged, and never abuse it. Please be seated. On behalf of St. George's University, I would like to thank the Arnold Gold Foundation for Humanism in Medicine pins placed on each student's white coat. Thank you, students, families, faculty, staff, and administrators for your support and presence at the ceremony. I ask that you remain seated and keep the aisles clear until the dignitaries and students exit. You are all invited to reception at the Lewis Marion Modica Hall. Thank you again for coming, and to all a good night.